What's up? Today, I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is, well, I define emotional intelligence as how much you understand your own emotions. How, do you know that you're angry? Do you know that you're happy? Do you know why you're angry? Do you know why you're happy? Do you know where it's sourced from? Emotional intelligence is one of those things that kind of flies under the radar as we grow up, right? We, in school, it's assumed, in the United States anyway, it's assumed that by you going through school, you will learn emotional intelligence somewhere along the way. You will learn social intelligence somewhere along the way. We're going to teach you math, science, all of the core stuff, and you'll figure everything else out so that by the time you're in the adult world working, you just kind of figure it out along the way, at least in the public school system. That's kind of how it goes. Now, if you want to study psychology, if you want to study neuroscience, if you want to study physiology, that's all bonus. Like, you can choose electives. When I was in high school, I could choose an elective for psychology. One of the electives actually was child psychology, which I chose psychology and they put child psychology. So I didn't even choose child psychology. And initially I was very resentful of it. I was like, I don't want to learn I don't want to learn about babies. I want to go learn about real psychology, like the stuff that's today, what I'm going through. Well, coming to find out that child psychology taught me a lot about not only children, but me. And this is when I was in high school. So I was also a child, but I was one of those children who was like, I'm a grown up. I already know everything. I'm ready to go be in the real world at like 17 years old. I was a sophomore or junior in high school, I think. But yeah, so psychology and emotional intelligence are kind of bonus to the standard track of the school system. They may be different now. I went through in 2011, but it may be different now. Also, don't mind the little bump here. I hit my head on the towel rack 2 days ago. It's pretty irritating, actually. But so, why does emotional intelligence matter? Emotional intelligence matters because it impacts your performance on a very heavy level. Why? We are emotional beings. Everything that we do is influenced by our emotional states and the emotions that we're having. Emotional state, I'm defining it as how intensely you're feeling an emotion. So if you're feeling happiness, how intensely, scale of 1 to 10, that's emotional state. The emotions themselves, what emotion are you feeling? Happiness, sadness, what have you. There's a lot of science out there that talks about this stuff. You actually learn better, for example, when you are happy. You learn better when you're having fun. So there's been many studies that have shown this. Let me be a little more specific. You learn faster. You learn new information faster and retain that information longer if you are having fun versus if you are stressed or if you are experiencing the not fun chemicals that your brain can release. So if you're having fun, you can learn faster, retain new information better. You can also, if you're having, let me back up actually before we get there. For example, if you take a daily practice of 15 to 60 minutes or more, there's not like a magic number. The tested ranges that I read about were 15 minutes to 60 minutes, and some people it's beyond 60 minutes, but in that range, whatever works for you, you can find what works for you. If you take that amount of time each day and you set time aside to experience joy and experience play, this is distinct. I'm not going to say meditation or mindful meditation, formal or informal meditation. I'm not speaking on those specifically here. I'm speaking about joy, like playing, whatever that looks like for you. If it's playing Sudoku, if it's scrolling, I'm going to say not scrolling Instagram specifically. That's a different I'm not going to get into that here, but that's actually a different engagement track in the brain. But something that you find fun, experiencing joy in the capacity of play. Why that's different than doom scrolling on Instagram is because the doom scrolling is kind of an idle action. What you want for, what you want for the experience of play is kind of a game, something you can play where there's interaction more than just watching. Kind of like watching TV doesn't really fit the bill there either. So experiencing play, dancing, talking with someone, like having a really fun conversation, just doing something you love, maybe reading a book. This is what some people love reading, some people don't. Some people love video games. Okay, play a video game that you enjoy, a video game that genuinely brings you joy for 15 to 60 minutes a day. The activity itself wasn't super specific, but people who experienced joy and excitement for 15 minutes to 60 minutes a day showed all of the stuff we were talking about. Increased ability to learn faster, ability to retain information longer versus people who did not. The specific study done was performing formal testing. People were given, there was group A, group B. Group A was told to play they were given, play and joy for 15 to 60 minutes a day for a certain number of days. They performed significantly better than group B, whom was just cram, study, 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 and that was all they did. And actually, there's a lot of science. If you look into, for example, I like this one because everybody thinks video games are all about fun. And they're supposed to be when they're designed well. But professional gamers, take that particular crowd of people who play video games professionally, like they go to tournaments, they make legit money, their career is actually playing video games in a competitive setting for an income. These guys kind of, I want to say similar maybe to like NFL athletes, probably not as big in the US anyway, but these guys travel the world doing what they do. They play video games. And actually their training, we can learn a lot from the way that they train it, because if a video game is something you're supposed to play to have fun, what about when it's played competitively and you need a measurable, consistent increase in your performance, right? So what these guys do, they have strict rules for first-person shooter video games where you're in the first-person perspective of a soldier or something, and shooter, so usually there's guns involved, like Halo or Call of Duty, very famous first-person shooter video games. These guys actually practice for no more than about an hour a day, because they found, and people studied groups of professional gamers and learned the same thing. When you would play for 6 to 8 hours a day, actually their performance decreases over time, because what happens is the fun factor starts to disappear because there's so much volume. The dopamine circuitry, which I'm not going to get super into on this episode, but in short, the dopamine circuitry, the novelty is an important component to it. So if something isn't new, so if you're playing the same video game for 8 hours, the first 2 to 3 days, you might see like benefit from playing more than for 1 hour a day. But beyond those first couple days, it just becomes a grind, no different than going to work and doing your job. And when it's a grind, the performance benefit is lost. And actually, you would incur a performance detriment. So these professional gamers found that the sort of magic formula for maximizing their performance was to play for no longer than an hour a day. Now, that was just for them, but no more than an hour. So they would play for an hour of hard work for them, hard work in the video game, like training. And after that, no more. No more, no more than the hour, because beyond that hour, it's a performance detriment. And actually, outside of the 1 to 2 hours that these guys would do their work, their training, they would not actually play that game when they were getting closer to tournament time, because they wanted to focus on the increase of performance. So as they're getting closer, they don't want to lose performance by training bad habits when they're inside the burnout zone. And that's kind of what a lot of this speaks to, actually, is you could say it's not about avoiding burnout or curbing burnout, but burnout's a very real thing. In essence, why joy is important is because it's the complete opposite of burnout. When you are in burnout, there is no joy, there is no excitement. You are in grind. You are in do this because you have to. When you're in that space, your brain isn't taking in new information, it's in survival mode. When you're in that space, your creativity is gone. You don't have any creativity. This is why major league athletes for sports like football and basketball, when they pay for those super high level coaches, most of what they're doing has nothing to do with the training of the actual sport. I mean, when you're talking about people who have shot basketball shots like 2,000 to 2 million times, they don't need to do more basketball shots. That's not what's going to make the measurable difference in their performance. What's going to make the measurable difference in their performance is what's going on up here. And what's going on up here is heavily affected by emotions and emotional state and joy. So all of this back to emotional state. Why emotional intelligence is important? Because when you understand your emotions, when you get to that point where you can understand what made you feel happy or sad, why you feel happy or sad, and you can work backwards and deconstruct those emotions, you then have the keys to the kingdom. You then have all the power to understand and choose. Ultimately, this is what it all comes back to, is it gives you the power to choose. Because when you break everything down, that's what you get to, is you get to freedom. Well, do I want to feel angry over the fact that I hit my fingers? Like today, for me, I was at the gym. And so I live in an apartment complex. Gym is on the first floor. Apartment is many floors up. So I went to the gym, worked out. On the way up, or either on the way out of the gym, I put a dumbbell back and I crushed my fingers and immediately got mad. And I knew in that moment I was mad because my fingers are hurting and now I'm going to have to deal with my fingers hurting for the rest of the day. And sometimes I can be kind of a baby about it. And I can, like, it's just irritating. I don't want to have this pain for the rest of my day. And I had stuff going on yesterday too. So immediately my brain's already like, the anger is almost hijacking my thought train, and it's going to this, okay, am I going to have another bad day today? Are we going to start off with another bad day? Why? Why is this happening? Am I just like, do I have bad luck? Is it an unlucky week? Like that's kind of where the thought process goes. But I was able to see it. Like I knew immediately, okay, well, I'm mad because I have pain here. Okay, the pain's going to go away over time, right? So I can be mad about it. There's nothing wrong with that. I can be mad. But do I want to be mad? And I know, personally, I know that in the space of anger, all of that frequency stuff that people talk about, right? Like vibrating at higher frequencies, that's actually a thing. That's actually true. In the space of anger, I love the terminology for it because it keeps it simple. In the space of anger, you vibrate at a lower frequency. So in the space of anger, you don't have vision or access to things like creativity. The more negative emotions you take on, the further you go into burnout, the farther you go from creativity. And creativity is huge because creativity drives innovation, and creativity has a massive impact on productivity. Because if you're creative about something, you can find more efficient ways to get more done in less time. But it's not just about that. You can preserve your energy better. You can put more of your energy to what you actually want, which is the whole point for me why emotional intelligence matters. I don't have time to have my emotions hijacked by shit that I don't care about. I'm wanting to live the best life. Like this whole podcast, Legendary Living, is about living your life through the space of your legendary form. You don't have time in that space for negative emotions and negativity and negative states of mind to run significant portions of your day. So emotional intelligence is your access to not have that happen. Now, as I've come to learn, a lot of guys don't do the whole emotion thing. A lot of guys don't dig deep into their emotion. There's a little bit of reason behind that. It's because, like, generally speaking, right, this isn't not for everyone, But in a general capacity, most of the time, men are not growing up doing each other's hair, talking about their feelings. This is why, if you look in culture, there's a lot of significance to barbershops, depending on which communities you look into. But in the men's community, like, barbershops are a big deal. It's like a sacred space for people, because you go there, you have some dude working on your hair, touching your head, which just naturally feels relaxing, and you know you're getting cleaned up and looking good. Sometimes people talk. It becomes their sacred space of like, I'm going to relax. There's a reason for that. But going back into the past of men, a lot of times we don't grow up doing each other's hair. We don't, when I was growing up anyway, maybe it's different now, hopefully, we didn't grow up like hugging each other. We didn't grow up like, oh man, good job, and like being physically affectionate, which is also why, by the way, physical touch is such a powerful love language in most men, because they grow up deprived of it. And when you had I don't think it's as much of a thing now, but when I was growing up, macho men, stereotypical, or what we refer to as toxic masculinity now, was a pretty big deal. It was a pretty big thing. So a lot of times men grew up without physical touch, physical affection from their fathers. So they didn't have much. So when female, or, whatever gender, when romantic companionship comes into the mix with physical touch, it's often a very heavy hitting, very high on the love languages scale for men, because it's been so absent in their lives. So actually, I kind of forgot why we got onto this topic, but long story short, emotional intelligence is more common in women than it is in men. And a lot of times when I've talked with guys, and like, I don't make people wrong for this. I don't make men wrong for this, or women right for that. But I just notice when I interact with guys, a lot of times there isn't much going on below the surface. So because guys, we have this capacity, like, we're the fixers, we're the protectors. We got to go fix everything. We got to make sure that the home is protected. We do that at all costs. And when we don't understand what's going on inside, we just kind of box it up and shove it away. But if you look into how post-traumatic stress happens, for example, PTSD at the higher levels, when we do that later, when we're safe, the brain pulls it back out for us to unpack. So then out of nowhere, we can become an emotional wreck sometimes. Well, it's because the brain has to deal with it at some point. The thing about emotions and our emotional states is that they are there whether we want to pay attention to them or not. And they have an impact on us, a very big one, whether we want them to or not. So even if we think that by just, for example, as a man, even if we think just by manning up and doing the thing, or shut up in color to just get through, like, that doesn't work in the long term, because whatever is not dealt with here will come back. And all the while that it's not dealt with, it's impacting your performance, even when you can't see it, because it just moves from the conscious to the subconscious. It doesn't go away until you deal with it. So emotional intelligence is your access to your full power. When I started learning how much my emotions were running the show, it really changed my whole world. Like, I gained access to all of my power. I'm actually trying to think of a specific moment so I can share a story about it, but the best one I got is just today, off the top of my head, today when I hit my fingers. When I hit my fingers, it's like, yeah, I'm mad, but do I want to be mad the whole day? Do I want to lose all of my creativity? Because when you're in the space of creativity, when you're in the space of fun and joy, it's addicting. It's powerful. You're like life at level 11 out of 10. When you're in the space of your legendary form, everything just works. You're living the life of your dreams, and your dreams are just being like fed to you through a fire hose. And that's what's possible, but not if I'm going to let anger run the show. If I'm going to let anger run the show, I can guarantee you the rest of my day is not going to work out for me. And I'm not going to get done what I wanted to get done, like doing this episode. So that's a little bit of why emotional intelligence is important. And if you want to see more, tell me. Trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, I'll see you guys on the next episode.